Well, it was actually quite a while ago. I had an idea going through a lot of fairy tales and folk tales, which I've been attracted to.
What's going on, guys? Web Style here, the man, the voice of fragrance, and we're here to talk about the future tales with the writer and artist from said project. First, we have Mr. Philip Tarl Denson, and then we have Mr. Raymund Agustin. How you gentlemen doing today?
Yeah, good, thanks. Really good.
Good,
Doing good. Doing good as well. Thanks for having
good.
us.
Oh, well, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. These gentlemen, it's late here, but it's early for them, so I appreciate their time in that regard. So, Philip, I'll start with you being the writer and author of this, and especially with your extensive background, which I'll get into during the course of the conversation. Where did the idea for Future Tales come from?
Well, it was actually quite a while ago. I had an idea going through a lot of fairy tales and folk tales, which I've been attracted to since I was a young bloke. And I kind of found this connection between them, almost like there's a shared universe there, like the woods or the wolf being the bad guy. There was this felt like they were all connected in the same world. And as a sci-fi fan, cyberpunk, post-apocalyptic, all that sort of genre, it almost just came to me quite quickly that these fairy tales and stories actually work quite well in the same universe in a futurized version. So yeah, it wasn't very long until it all kind of clicked, but it took a long time to actually create it into some sort of form because it was just in my head until we had the opportunity to make it as a comic book. There we
Yeah,
go.
I hit stop record instead of unmute. It's all good though. But with that, I think those older tales really translate well into, really modern times and future times as well. Now, Raymond, with that, what approach did you take to really creating the look of the book based on Philip's words?
Um, Philip was really helpful at the beginning. He was sending a lot of references. He was kind of already clear on what type of story and comic he wanted to make. So what we did initially is we kind of went back and forth. We created some concepts. We created some initial designs, and then I sent it to him. And then because the nature of our work is I send stuff to him, and then he gives me feedback. And then once we nail down the design, the things that we're gonna do, we just went on with it. We decided with us how it would look like, and also what artworks are we gonna put in the cover, inside the pages. So basically, that's what we do. We go back and forth, and before we decide on what we're gonna do with the pages.
Okay, awesome. I love that it's a real collaborative work that's really I love hearing that. And 'cause I know sometimes when I've talked to other creators and the process is a bit different here or there as far as how collaborative they are with artists, especially when everybody's working freelance. Sometimes you trust the artist and the vision. It's funny, I just watched a video on like the Marvel way back in the 60s and 70s and how they kind of did things there. And it's really interesting hearing about all the different processes that are used to make comics. So I'm really think that's cool that it's such a collaborative effort between the two of you. Now, with Future Tales, this is a paperback collection. What plans do you have for this in the future? Is this sort of a one and done, or is this going to continue on as a series?
Well, it tells one full story.
Okay.
The interesting thing about this, there's 8 chapters within this, each by a different artist actually from
Okay.
around the world, and each focusing on a different fairy tale character and story. But they're all in the same world. They inform each other, and it all builds to like an Avengers style final act where they all come together to fight the big bad. And it was always
Okay.
designed like that. There could be a second series using other fairy tales and progressing the story, and I'd love to continue working with Raymond. Raymond is an amazing artist who I just want to continue working with. Even though we worked with many different artists, I do love all the artists we worked with. But there was just a connection with Raymond from very early on. But there's another thing about the future for Future Tales is we've and it's pretty fresh. We've just pitched it as an animated series, so there is a potential that we might be adapting it into an animation, just short episodes that could, yeah, again become a series. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. I guess looking at some of your background with some of the projects you worked on in production companies, that was actually something I was going to ask about, because it seems like since you have those connections already, and with the marketplace the way it is, where it's just there's a wide avenue for content and a lot of platforms that want content, so they're looking for new things all the time. It seems like something like this would be a pretty good endeavor for a potential customer.
Yeah, so we, as a screenwriter, I'm used to writing for some names, some big names, but also creating new worlds and new ideas. But the big need, apparently, in the market is IP, things that are based on books, comics, games, because there's already a built-in audience then. So although I personally love creating new ideas and there's many different ways we can do that. And having this comic actually allows, I mean, look at that beautiful cover from Raymund and the gold foil. Oh, it's beautiful. It actually gives us IP. So by having this comic there, it could like lend itself for film, TV. And I think a lot of creators, if you're finding your minimum viable product, the thing that you can do for a price that you can get out to an audience, to build an audience, you never know where that can end up.
Right. I you bringing up IP is actually a discussion. And in addition to this, I do many other things online, and one of the things I do is a gaming show, and my partner Brian and I, we oftentimes talk about why aren't companies really utilizing the IP that they have. Like, for instance, I know a big game you are, but Sony brought out Concord, and that kind of just flopped in the past couple of weeks. And both Brian and I was saying, why didn't, like, Sony's this big entertainment mammoth, you have such an opportunity for using this IP to push the game but also spread on other places. And I think Concord is going to be on the Secret Levels anthology series coming out on Amazon, but that's like after the fact now. Even with Microsoft with High Five Rush before that whole debacle, we were like, this is perfect. Like, this is anime. This is an IP they could really broaden the horizon. So our conversations are always sort of tailored to that. So I totally understand what you're saying as far as when you have this IP, something that where you can introduce it in this way, and then you can expand it to others. I would just say Baltimore Comic Con, and literally that's a conversation I had with a creator I've known for a couple of years, who I've supported their Kickstarters for a while. I love their book, and it's something in my mind lends to like a short film or a film or a TV series the way it's written. And that makes total sense what you're saying as far as they're really looking for IP now, something that's, established, but also something I could see if I have money and I'm trying to produce a new show or something, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, what is this going to look like? Well, the comic's pretty much a storyboard right there. You can get an idea of how this is going to go, how you can structure your episodes, your movies, what have you, based on the comic. So it seems like an easy lift when it comes to getting something produced.
Yeah. Even with Overwatch. Sorry, Philip. I mean, I just realized that even with Overwatch, they did a lot of animations, teaser trailers, and also they also made comics for Overwatch before. I'm not sure if it's before the game was released or during the lifetime of Overwatch, but they did make comics. I think the artist was forgot the name. He's an Italian or French artist.
Yeah, it's funny because I would say there's two different ways that it's angled. One is as IP, where the creator creates something, and it could be anything: a short film, a comic, a book, and then it gets picked up to become a bigger thing, and that's when the creator often makes some money back, hopefully. Whereas the other angle is a company like let's say Overwatch. They're making a game, and then they want to diversify and say, let's make merchandise, let's make comics to just draw more of the audience and build a bit of an audience. So there's a few different angles. I obviously come from the first angle, where if I'm writing a screenplay, it is in the hopes that it can become something bigger. If I'm working on a TV show, then I'm working on someone else's product. But when we create something that has direct access to an audience like a comic book, that
Mhm.
there's no middleman. I don't have to wait for producers. I don't have to wait for, to cast a star. We can just make amazing artwork and get it out there. To me, that's quite exciting. And whatever happens after that is just a bonus.
Understood. Now, I have a question as far as time frame, like from beginning to end. How long did it take to put the book together? Because I asked this simply because, well, it's a lot of reasons, but you talk about the 8 chapters, you're working with different artists, different people's schedules, time frames. Like, how long did it really take to bring everything together?
Well, ours was a funny little thing because we didn't really know exactly what it was going to be, because Wild North Comics was a group of us, comics creators up in Darwin in Australia. And we all just got together and said, let's make an anthology where we all do 10 pages each. And that's where I thought, oh, great, Future Tales would fit well because I can do 10 pages per chapter, per character, show this world in a way. And we had other, creative artists involved as well. And then when we did our second anthology and we got a little bit of attention, that's when we started going, okay, we've got to find some new artists and start building this. So it actually took a few years because we were just going every 6 months, we'll release an anthology, the latest anthology, and I will just have a next chapter. And so it did slowly build until once we realized, I think we had about 4 chapters, and we were like, oh, we're getting a bit of attention this way. Why don't we start breaking out and doing standalone graphic novels, collecting the one artist's or one creator's work? And that's when we sort of pulled together, and I was getting covers from Raymund and another chapter, and Raymund helped fix some of the first chapter as well. It was a really good collaboration. In the end, I would say probably a good 2 years it took us from there to our Kickstarter, where we launched, and went from there.
Okay. Now, I want to ask is starting with Raymund, just about some of your inspirations, because when you love comics, especially when you start into writing and drawing, you tend to have artists that sort of influence you. So, Raymond, like, what sort of artists or books or characters influence you on your journey to become this artist?
A lot of people actually, but I mean the people who comes into mind is um I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. Is it Jakub or Jakub Rebelka?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I know you told me. Yes.
Yeah, I really like how he approach colors and how he does his art styles.
Mm-hmm.
Not everything is symmetrical, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, that's the beauty in it. It's not perfect. Um, if you're familiar also with Miko Soayan, he's a Filipino artist.
Okay.
He's really good in creating traditional artworks. Um, and also, I approach my artworks the way digital artists, digital painters approach their pieces, because I learned how to color and how to, the theory of shapes, the harmony between colors, the weight of the line works. I learned that from what's his name, Mark Brunet.
Okay.
He's an artist from Blizzard, and also from Cynex, if you're familiar with Cynex,
Mm-hmm.
those digital painters. So I combined all of those things that I learned from them, and then I use it to basically do my artwork. There are some other artists that I can't remember, but all of those are culmination of experience, and I always watch them draw online. That's basically how I learned to draw. Just watch
Okay.
online.
Oh, that's awesome. That's amazing. Now, Philip, with a background in physics, I'm really interested to see or to understand
Wow.
how you got into screenwriting.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I did zoology as well at university. So, and I ended up going, I taught science for a while. We taught remotely, and also I taught physics. And the truth is I was always writing, but I never realized there was a viable profession. But I was writing since I was young. Writing like 40-page stories when I was in middle school, and just doing it because I just loved it. And it wasn't until I got into the theater I realized that script-based storytelling is what I really liked. And I think comics, film, TV, all that. It's a script. That's what it starts with. And every one of those, you need to collaborate with someone, unless you're the artist yourself, and make sure that the words on the page are doing the job to evoke those images. And that's the one thing I really enjoyed, is working with the artists, because you've got an idea in your head. I sometimes even lay out my pages, but then they'll come up with an amazing idea that I haven't even thought about, or just a way to show it. So screenwriting though kind of came because I was writing theatre, and then I wrote my first feature film, and I got it over and I got optioned, and then I got a manager, and I got a phone call from Ron Howard in 2019 to develop a TV series, just the usual.
The usual, yes. Well, I will say my background's in science as well, and I've taught also. So my bachelor's is in environmental marine science, and my master's is in technically food and ag, but it's a long story, but it's natural resource management. So I definitely understand like that science aspect, and then your career kind of takes different paths.
And I've been able to bring a lot of that science, particularly in the particle physics or quantum mechanics side of things, into my work, and that's actually opened up a few opportunities. And I'm working on a TV series right now which is all about quantum mechanics. So yeah, science and creativity, it all comes together.
Okay. So Raymond, let me ask you, so you've done Future Tales with this, like how many other comics have you done in general?
Initially, it's actually funny because the first project I worked on, I was just a colorist. That was a few years back. The title is Lesbian Zombies from Outer Space. Are you familiar with that comic?
I'm not, but I need to look that up.
Lesbian Zombies from Outer Space. So that's the first work that I did. What's the name of the author again? Sorry, I forgot, but that's way back. That's way back 2017 or 2016, I guess. And then afterwards, because I was working at a call center before that, and then when I was at work, I was drawing some characters, and then there's this one office mate. He said that he has a friend who works at Marvel, not really Marvel specifically, but this artist does like Marvel cards. I'm really not familiar with those Marvel cards.
Yes.
So then that guy, he has a project, and then he kind of needed a colorist. So that's the first gig that I got. So he got me into comics, and then afterwards, there's another project. It's the title is Big Willie. It's a Canadian-based comic. So it's inspired by his son. So the comic is a superhero comic, but the characters are inspired by his kids. So it's kind of like a high action comic. So at first I was a colorist there as well, but then I told the author that I can draw as well. So he gave me an opportunity. So there are issues that I did draw for that. And then afterwards, I also delved into illustrations in books. Those other books that has a few pages of illustration.
Yes.
So there's this one I did. The title is, I forgot the title. Eon Viant, EONVIANT. So it's a book by James Hill.
Okay.
So we're still in contact right now, but I'm still busy with project with Philip, and there's this other project that I'm doing, and then there's this another one. So
you're working. That's great. Like you're getting projects. That's awesome.
It's one of those good problems.
Yeah, very much so. Understood. Now with Philip, you have a whole host of different works to your credit that I'm seeing here. What drew you to writing comics, though?
Oh, I've been a comic fan since I was a kid. In fact, I think I was about 10 years old when I was handed my first Marvel comic. So I was reading some of the European stuff, heavy metal, because my dad had a few, Conan. So I loved that, and I always drew it myself as well. And then someone gave me X-Men 2099 because I was a sci-fi person.
Oh yes, the 2099. Yes,
So my actually access into the Marvel universe was
Ah.
through the sci-fi side of things, and then I got into DC, and then Image, and then really got into independent comics. That's what I liked, just worlds that weren't just superheroes, that weren't just what we've seen a lot. So I got quite eclectic with my tastes. But I always wanted to do a comic. I always thought I would do a comic, but because life takes you in a different direction, and I stopped drawing for a long time. So when this opportunity came up, that it just felt right. And there was so many different projects we could have went with, but the fact that Future Tales was the first one was just great because it was a 15-year-old idea of mine, 20-year-old idea that I finally got to see come to fruition.
Awesome. Now it's interesting. X-Men 2099 is weird because I got in with X-Men in general when I got into comics. So X-Men 29 is never a book I got into. I got into Spider-Man 2099 heavily.
Yeah.
Like Miguel O'Hara is like literally
Yeah.
still one of my favorite characters ever. So I remember buying the first initial line, the Punisher one, the Ravage one, which was like the last Marvel character Stanley created, and then Spider-Man 2099. So I was pretty versed on them when they came out back in the day, but I never got an X-Men 29. I don't know why. I know that was a Fantastic Four one as well. Just never got into it. But those were good books in general. And I think that they, especially at the time, much like the Ultimate series did, afterwards, were a good way of kind of getting new readers into Marvel without all of the backlog of continuity and everything.
Well, it worked for me. It got me, and I collected all of the 2099 series, and Age of Apocalypse was one of my favorite.
Oh, yes.
Is that the one where Magneto has a long hair with the?
Yeah.
Then he's with Rogue. Is that it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's the good guy, and Logan's missing his hand. Like there's and it's the post-apocalyptic setting that even as a younger guy, I was really attracted to, and it's actually got some references to within Future Tales. So it's funny how that's come full circle.
That storyline in general, and it's just I guess I really started comics when it was probably about 90. 92, 93. It was before I went to high school, so it had been like 92. Age of Apocalypse was high school for me. And I just remember when that came out, we were all blown away because nobody expected any of that to happen after the Onslaught thing and Heroes Reborn. And it's just like, wow. It was just an amazing storyline. And for them to have, I think Marvel, and I'm not so much into a lot of Marvel and DC stuff now, that when I read stuff, it's more independent. But back then specifically, their crossovers and the intricacy, even with DC and a lot of stuff, the crossovers they did, the intricacy, and not just that, even the fallout that happened for years to come was just like the amount of planning and coordination is just insane when you look at it nowadays. And not saying they don't still do a good job now, but just there was something about a lot of those crossovers back then that just it hit.
My favorite crossover was with the Batman and the Daredevil.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think I have that.
Yeah. Oh, I was at Baltimore Comic-Con this past weekend, and everybody loves Frank Miller's Daredevil, and I understand, but for me, Lee Weeks is the guy that got me into loving Daredevil. So I actually got a chance to meet him and to tell him like you, like everybody talks about Frank Miller. No, you're the guy. Like your art is what got me into Daredevil and really gave me appreciate the character. I appreciate the character. Like I thought that was like I had such a fanboy moment being in Baltimore because like they had Steve Epting's right beside Ron Wagner. I'm like, okay, that's like the dude that made me fall in love with Captain America. This guy outside of George Perez defined the Avengers for me growing up, and just there were just so many different artists there. So it was amazing. So it's something that at least for me, and I'm sure most comic fans in general, a lot of those artists, like their works like really help define a character for you, and it kind of sticks with you as you go along. It really influences what you do and how you do things going forward.
Yeah, I would even say I actually started following writers for a similar reason when I realized who they were. Like my personal story like that is I actually think Joe Kelly created Deadpool more so than
I agree.
life, because
I
he
agree.
created the personality and the joke and the breaking the fourth wall. He might not have created the character, but he gave everything to Deadpool. And I remember that first run. I still have them and revisit them, and doesn't get the credit. But as a writer, amazing writer.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. But I remember I bought that first Deadpool miniseries back in the day, and yeah, it's definitely a different character from when he showed up in X-Force. And you
Yeah.
still had some of that wackiness there, but it was 90s, early 2000s X-Men, and I love Liefeld, don't get me wrong. But him and Fabian Nassir, I think, who was writing X-Force at the time, there was a tone to the X books. That tone wasn't the Deadpool we have now, what Deadpool is known for. And you're right, Joe Kelly really, a lot of that came from his writing and evolving the character over the years.
Yeah. Miss it.
So, but gentlemen, I'm going to let you guys go. Tell us where we can find more on Future Tales.
So it's live on Amazon. You can look it up on Amazon. It's also the website Wild North Comics. Go check it out. There's some new comics coming out from that. Some really exciting. I know Raymond's working on another really killer comic through Wild North. So go onto Amazon, get onto Wild North Comics. And who knows, we may be even seeing another volume in the future.
Okay, nice.
Future Tales.
Yeah. Anything you want to plug coming up as well? Any links you want people to know about?
If they can just follow me in my Facebook page, Agustin Raymund. I have a Agustin Raymund art. So I have two pages, my personal and work page. But I post all the same on my main and my pages. And also, I'm still working with Philip. And also, there's this other guy, Tim, from Wild North Comics. We're kind of cooking up something at the moment. So the title is Chimera. So it's kind of an anthropomorphic story with a pretty deep and dark story that we're creating right now. And if you're familiar with some of the works of Frank Miller and some of those minimalistic kind of have interesting way of telling stories artists, so it's inspired by those. So watch out for that. We're kind of launching a Kickstarter soon, so it's still under the influence and the still under the same roof of Wild North Comics. I really love working with these guys.
We love working. He's amazing. Raymond should be, it's same quality as these Marvels and DCs and Images. It's a miracle we found him, and we love working with Raymond.
I'm glad to hear. As the A team say, I love it when a plan comes together. So everybody watching, you would have seen all of those links flash on your screen. If you missed them, rewind, watch it again, or look in the show notes below. Philip, Raymond, thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it. You guys out there, continue to watch Web Style. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your listening. And remember, stay safe out there and be blessed.
Thank you for having me.
Hello, baby. This is your lovely Misty Stone, and you are watching Webster Style with me.
What anime are you going to be watching?